Alien, released in 1979, changed the shape of science fiction forever. It took a classic idea, an extraterrestrial threat, and made it genuinely terrifying. Ridley Scott, who was relatively new to feature filmmaking at the time, brought a gritty, claustrophobic realism that set it apart from the glossy space operas of the day. And more than 4 decades later, people still can't stop talking about its blend of spine-chilling horror, groundbreaking design work, and the unforgettable performance of Sigourney Weaver as Ripley. Now, let's embark on a journey through 30 little-known secrets and anecdotes from behind the scenes. Alien replaces Star Beast. Dan O'Bannon, who co-wrote what became Alien, felt that this placeholder sounded almost comical, not at all in line with the sense of dread he wanted to conjure. As he was flipping through the pages, he noticed just how frequently the word alien appeared. Something about that word, so simple yet deeply unnerving, clicked for him. It had a stark tone, an otherworldly weight, and a subtle threat, all wrapped up in just 5 letters. By swapping Star Beast for Alien, O'Bannon gave the film an edge that felt far more menacing. This seemingly small change helped define the film's entire personality, stripped down, unsettling, and guaranteed to crawl under your skin from the very first mention. O'Bannon wanted nightmares, not comedy. Dan O'Bannon's journey to Alien started with John Carpenter's Dark Star, a sci-fi flick that leaned heavily on comedic elements. O'Bannon, though proud of his contributions there, always wanted to deliver true terror, unbound by humor. He famously said, "I'm going to give them nightmares this time," marking his intention to move from comedic sci-fi to an unrelenting horror-in-space concept. Drawing inspiration from everything from H.P. Lovecraft to real-world parasites, O'Bannon poured his darkest imaginings into Alien. The outcome was a script that turned the infinite potential of outer space into a suffocating maze where survival was far from guaranteed. It's a testament to his ambition that the film still stands as a gold standard in horror, no matter the setting or decade. Giger's art shocked the studio. When Ridley Scott discovered H.R. Giger's artwork, it was like stumbling upon a hidden nightmare. Giger's aesthetic, organic, mechanical, and dripping with sexual overtones, mesmerized Scott. However, studio executives at 20th Century Fox were initially horrified by the prospect of bringing these disturbing biomechanical visions to life. They feared the audience would recoil en masse. But Ridley was unwavering in his stance. He believed that the deeper the horror, the more profoundly it would affect viewers, and he argued that Giger's designs were crucial. Without Giger, Alien might have slid into the realm of forgettable monster movies, but with him it became a visceral and haunting piece of cinema. Giger's Xenomorph remains a masterpiece of creature design, part twisted sculpture, part psychological grenade. Storyboards doubled the budget. Ridley Scott's storyboarding skills proved so impressive that he almost single-handedly convinced 20th Century Fox to double the film's budget. These boards weren't just stick figures and scribbles, they were elaborate atmospheric sketches that spelled out the claustrophobic corridors, the terrifying angles, and the overarching menace lurking in every frame. Executives began to see that this wasn't going to be another B-movie with hokey effects and cardboard sets. Rather, it had the potential to be something groundbreaking, perhaps even timeless. Such immediate and dramatic financial backing is a testament to the cinematic promise that Scott displayed from the very start. The result? A production that could afford cutting-edge practical effects and meticulously crafted sets, letting the audience experience a spaceship that felt grimy, real, and dangerously isolating. Sigourney Weaver's breakout role. Sigourney Weaver was far from a household name when she was cast as the now iconic Ellen Ripley. Some studio insiders pushed for a more established actress, thinking that a big name would secure box office success. Ridley Scott, however, saw a unique blend of raw vulnerability and underlying strength in Weaver. He sensed that once audiences glimpsed her in action, facing off against an unknown terror with grit and intelligence, they would be hooked. History proved him right. Ripley became an emblem of empowerment, not just in sci-fi, but across cinema at large. Weaver's untested status actually enhanced the film's tension. The audience had no preconceived notions about her, making her journey of survival feel that much more authentic and unpredictable. Meryl Streep was nearly Ripley. Meryl Streep's name floated around for the role of Ripley, largely because she and Weaver had both attended Yale School of Drama. Though she never officially auditioned, the possibility was enough to spark all kinds of what-if scenarios. Scheduling conflicts ended the speculation swiftly, opening the door for Weaver to seize the role with both hands. It's fascinating to imagine a parallel universe where Streep leads the Nostromo's crew against an alien threat, but there's no question that Weaver carved a place in pop culture history that no one else could have matched. In one of cinema's most serendipitous alignments, the perfect part found its perfect actor. Claustrophobic set design was real. To amp up the realism, the Nostromo's interiors were constructed as a continuous labyrinth rather than using typical breakaway walls. The cast was forced to navigate actual corridors that twisted and turned like the bowels of a rusted industrial vessel. Ridley Scott wanted to trap his actors in a physical space that felt oppressive, ensuring their performances captured genuine claustrophobia. According to Sigourney Weaver, she'd often feel lost, as though she truly were stuck on a spaceship with no sense of direction. That set design made it impossible to shake the unsettled atmosphere. Every time the cast turned a corner, they felt like something could be lurking just out of sight, mirroring exactly what their characters would have felt. The 7-foot-2-inch man behind the alien. In one of the most improbable casting discoveries in Hollywood history, Bolaji Badejo, a 7'2" Nigerian graphic design student, was spotted in a bar and swiftly recruited to play the alien. Ridley Scott was searching for someone whose proportions were unnervingly elongated, giving the creature an otherworldly gait. Balaji's uncanny limb-to-torso ratio lent the xenomorph its signature, disturbing movement, making it appear both predatory and unsettlingly graceful. In the world of costume and creature effects, you can mold foam and shape latex all you want, but sometimes it's the performer's natural physiology that truly sells the horror. That chance meeting in a pub became a pivotal moment in shaping one of cinema's most iconic monsters, Giger's erotic horror design. H.R. Giger's design for the xenomorph is notoriously laced with sexual undertones, particularly in the creature's elongated, phallic-shaped head. This was no accident. Giger wanted to evoke primal discomfort, tapping into subconscious fears tied to violation and the invasive nature of parasitic life forms. The studio was initially skittish, fearing that censors or audiences might find such an overtly sexualized design off-putting. Yet Ridley Scott understood that horror often derives its power from the subtext we're too uneasy to articulate. By keeping that erotic edge, the xenomorph transcended the typical scary monster mold to become something far more psychologically unsettling. Facehugger inspired by real parasites. The facehugger emerged from Dan O'Bannon's fascination with parasitic wasps, which lay their eggs inside a host's body. This natural world horror was the perfect template for an alien life cycle that invades and then transforms its victims. O'Bannon found such a concept infinitely more terrifying than random space beasts blasting lasers. It implies a biological inevitability, as though nature herself had crafted the most unsettling means of reproduction possible. The facehugger's entire design hinged on the idea of unstoppable intrusion, wrapping itself around your head and forcing its spawn down your throat. It's the unholy marriage of real-world entomology and cosmic dread, an idea so grotesque that audiences were simultaneously repelled and riveted. Chestburster used real animal organs. The chestburster scene stands out as one of the most shocking moments in horror cinema, thanks in no small part to the production team's decision to use real animal entrails purchased from a butcher. The stench alone was enough to put everyone on edge, but the real kicker was that the cast didn't fully know what to expect. The script was vague, offering minimal details about the exact levels of gore. When the fake alien puppet burst through John Hurt's chest, spraying blood and offal at his co-stars, their reactions were 100% genuine. Some of those horrified screams practically tore through the soundstage. The authenticity of their revulsion is seared into the final cut, ensuring that viewers feel that same gut-wrenching jolt decades later. Veronica Cartwright's genuine terror. Veronica Cartwright, who played Lambert, was particularly traumatized by the intensity of the chestburster sequence. She'd been briefed only in vague terms, and nothing prepared her for the geyser of blood that greeted her face. She famously recoiled, screaming to the point of nearly losing her voice. Cartwright later admitted that no method acting was necessary. She was genuinely disgusted, left shaking by the end of the take. This raw emotional overload translated brilliantly on screen, capturing Lambert's horrified paralysis in the face of unimaginable violence. It's often said that the best performances come from tapping real emotions, and in this instance, the line between actor and character completely disappeared. Weaver's reaction wasn't acting. Sigourney Weaver wasn't immune to the surprise either. She only had a partial sense of what was about to unfold, so when the blood rigs went off at maximum capacity, her shock was real. She was also mindful of the camera's gaze, trying to stay in character, but those wide eyes and horrified steps back told the truth of her disbelief. The fact that the scene still resonates with audiences underscores how unpredictability can enhance terror. By not fully scripting or rehearsing every gory detail, Ridley Scott trapped his own cast in a moment of collective panic, a method that proved extremely effective for capturing authentic fear. In space, no one can hear you scream. In space, no one can hear you scream might be one of the most iconic taglines in film history, and it originated from a young copywriter at Fox trying to encapsulate the film's bone-chilling isolation. Ridley Scott acknowledged it as a genius stroke of advertising because it distilled the core of Alien into one phrase: the suffocating sense that you're alone, unprotected, and utterly at the mercy of a ruthless predator. That tagline, splashed across posters and trailers, primed audiences to experience the movie as more than just sci-fi. It was a grim harbinger of doom. No wisecracking heroes, no easy escape, just the terrifying truth that outer space doesn't care about your survival. The secret behind the alien's slime. Maintaining the alien's disturbingly organic sheen required a simple but supremely effective substance, KY jelly. Production assistants were tasked with slathering the creature suit and the set pieces to keep everything glistening. This gave the xenomorph a perpetually wet look, heightening the grotesque sense that it was part biological organism, part shadowy nightmare. Ridley Scott believed that the dripping ooze played on primal fears of bodily fluids and infection. Every time the alien emerged from the dark, coated in that unsettling slime, it felt alive and predatory, an unholy fusion of mechanical edges and organic wetness that unsettled audiences on a deeply visceral level. Spacesuits were torturous. The planet exploration scenes, shot early in the film, required the actors to don bulky spacesuits that quickly became minor torture devices. Under the glare of studio lights, the suits trapped heat, turning them into portable saunas. Crew members recalled that it was not unusual for the actors to get dizzy or even faint during takes. Production had to rig cooling tubes and fans to provide brief moments of relief. Though physically punishing, these suits added an unsettling realism, conveying the idea that even advanced technology can't shield you from the harshness of alien environments. That sweaty discomfort is visible on the cast's faces, serving the story by emphasizing the innate peril of stepping into unknown territory. Jerry Goldsmith's score was altered. Jerry Goldsmith's score for Alien is a masterclass in atmospheric dread, full of eerie, dissonant strings and pulsating undertones that mirror a distant heartbeat. Yet, in the final stages of editing, some of Goldsmith's compositions were swapped for older or reworked music. This creative shift reportedly upset Goldsmith, who felt the changes blunted the impact of his carefully crafted themes. Despite that tension, the end result remains a crucial element of the film's success. The music underscores the relentless tension, at times so subtle you barely notice it, and at others swelling into a cacophony of terror that makes your skin crawl. It's a prime example of how vital sound is to the horror experience. The right chord progression can feel like a monster creeping up behind you. Geiger oversaw every prop. H.R. Geiger was so invested in bringing the alien ecosystem to life that he personally supervised the creation of the egg and facehugger props. He chose translucent layers, ominous organic textures, and glistening finishes to make it seem as though these objects pulsed with some dark life force. Set technicians often worked well into the night under his watchful eye, carefully coating each prop in resins and paints until they achieved the perfect biomechanical gloss. The result was an uncanny sense of reality. You believed these horrors were grown in the uncharted depths of space. Geiger's hands-on approach guaranteed that no detail looked overtly manufactured, instead oozing authenticity straight from a feverish nightmare. Truckers in space aesthetic. Alien embraced the concept of truckers in space, a phrase Ridley Scott used to describe the gritty, down-to-earth vibe he envisioned for the Nostromo's crew. Rather than sleek jumpsuits and polished metal corridors, the ship's hallways appeared battered, cluttered with blinking lights, loose wiring, and a healthy layer of grime. The actors wore rumpled utilitarian clothing that looked like it had seen too many work shifts. This aesthetic choice humanized the crew, making them relatable and vulnerable, as if they were just regular folks doing a tough job. When the alien begins to stalk them, you're painfully aware these aren't super soldiers or fearless astronauts. They're ordinary people wholly unprepared for the unimaginable horror now aboard their ship. Weaver was allergic to Jonesy. Ironically, Sigourney Weaver battled cat allergies while filming with Jonesy, the Nostromo's feline resident. Between takes, she often popped antihistamines, trying not to sneeze or rub her teary eyes. She joked that the cat seemed to sense her discomfort, occasionally wandering too close just to provoke an allergic flare-up. In the film, of course, Ripley's concern for the cat becomes a telling character detail. She's compassionate enough to rescue Jonesy even when it puts her at risk. Weaver's real-life struggle with feline-induced itching lent an extra layer of authenticity to those anxious moments, ensuring that the tension between cat and alien felt all the more real. Yaphet Kotto maintained on-set tension. Yaphet Kotto, playing Parker, stayed in a kind of standoffish mode off-camera, challenging others in an effort to maintain that simmering antagonism. Ridley Scott encouraged these personal frictions, believing that they'd translate to authentic on-screen tension. It was a strategy that paid off, giving the Nostromo's crew a palpable sense of barely contained stress. Their bickering and uneasy alliances made them feel more like stressed co-workers than a tight-knit band of heroes, which further heightened the horror once the alien began to pick them off. There's an uneasy electricity in those small arguments that sets the stage for the film's descent into chaos. Ash's android reveal was a surprise. The shocking revelation that Ash, Ian Holm, is actually an android was kept under wraps from some of the actors to enhance their perplexity and suspicion during filming. Holmes' subtle performance, like minimal blinking and carefully modulated speech, provided clues if you watched closely, but the cast only got the full script pages revealing Ash's true nature later in production. Their genuine reactions to the twist mirrored the film's theme of paranoia. If you can't trust the people around you, can you trust anything at all? This sense of unseen betrayal made Ash's meltdown scene even more jarring, reminding everyone that the Nostromo harbored dangers beyond just the alien. Ash's fluids were disgustingly real. Speaking of Ash's meltdown, the fluid that pours out of his malfunctioning android body is a bizarre slurry of milk, caviar, pasta, and who knows what else. The smell and texture were reportedly revolting, but Ridley Scott felt the chunky, gooey result was perfect for illustrating a machine that's part synthetic, part organic. Ian Holm was so repulsed that he tried to minimize his time splattered with the mixture. The result on camera, however, is an unforgettable spectacle, a stark contrast to the usual depiction of androids bleeding clear fluid or sparks. In Alien, even the technology seems to be weirdly biological, as if everything in this universe is subject to transformation into something grotesque. Alien's reproductive horror sparked debate. The film's core reproductive horror, embodied in Kane's impregnation and subsequent chest-bursting, stirred intense controversy. Some critics felt Alien exploited violent sexual imagery that went too far, but Dan O'Bannon defended the choice, insisting that horror gains potency when it taps fears of bodily violation. He wanted viewers, male and female alike, to experience that primal unease over forced breeding and loss of bodily autonomy. By inverting typical gender-based horror tropes, Alien confronted audiences with a universal vulnerability. This wasn't a safe, sanitized scare. It was an assault on the psyche, a reflection of humanity's deepest anxieties about losing control over one's own flesh. Weaver carried the fear home. Sigourney Weaver admitted that after production wrapped, she carried a lingering sense of unease. Part of it stemmed from the atmosphere on set: low light, disorienting corridors, the suffocating knowledge that a horrifying creature might be lurking around any corner, even if it was just a man in a suit. Another layer came from the psychological implications of the storyline, the idea that an alien force could colonize your body. She found herself reflecting on what it meant to fight an enemy that's inside as much as outside. That emotional weight gave her portrayal of Ripley a surprising depth, as though she'd been to the brink of something far darker than she'd ever imagined and barely managed to pull herself back. Primal fear versus futuristic tech. One of Ridley Scott's intentions was to juxtapose futuristic technology with a savage, primal horror, reminding us that progress can't fully shield humanity from ancient terrors. Spaceships, advanced sensors, and laser-sighted weaponry, none of it fundamentally changed the fact that humans remain vulnerable prey. The xenomorph weaponizes our own curiosity and technological hubris, sneaking aboard the Nostromo precisely because the crew follows protocol to explore a distress signal. By the time they realize their error, it's too late. This theme resonates to this day, pointing out that while technology can open new doors, it can also unleash horrors we're ill-equipped to handle. The message is clear. No matter how advanced we think we are, we're still not exempt from being part of the food chain. Fear of darkness was weaponized. The cinematography leans heavily on darkness. The limited lighting creates a claustrophobic effect, making you strain to see what lurks in the corners or along the ceilings. Crew members often joked about the bruises they racked up from tripping over unseen set pieces or banging their heads on low-hanging beams. This methodical deprivation of visibility forces the audience's imagination into overdrive. In many ways, it's more haunting to guess where the alien might be than to see it in full view. Ridley Scott leveraged our innate fear of the dark to keep watchers on high alert for every flicker of movement or hint of a silhouette. In that gloom, the xenomorph achieves near-mythic status. Is the alien intelligent? The intelligence level of the alien remains a hotly debated question among fans. Is it a cunning predator capable of strategic thought, or is it merely an instinctual killing machine following a biological mandate? Ridley Scott has provided conflicting perspectives over the years, at times suggesting it has a heightened animal cunning, while at others hinting that it's just an efficient survival mechanism. This ambiguity serves the film well. The alien is terrifying precisely because its motives and processes are so opaque. If you can't understand your enemy, you certainly can't predict it. By leaving this open to interpretation, the film invites endless speculation and rewatching, Oscars and later recognition. Alien claimed an Oscar for Best Visual Effects, a testament to the film's technical wizardry. Yet many fans believe it was shortchanged in other categories, from set design to acting and direction. Over time, critics have re-evaluated the film, elevating it to the pantheon of cinematic masterpieces rather than a mere sci-fi B-movie. It's now recognized not just for its horrifying creature and special effects, but for the nuanced performances, the oppressive atmosphere, and the layered storytelling. This reappraisal underscores how a movie's reputation can evolve. Something initially sold as a midnight fright flick can later be understood as a watershed moment in film history, shaping the direction of both sci-fi and horror genres for decades. Director's cut versus theatrical release. Ridley Scott's original cut was longer and lingered on additional scenes that explored the alien's life cycle as well as deeper dynamics among the Nostromo's crew. Some of these scenes were eventually inserted into later releases, like the director's cut, where you see the chilling moment of Dallas cocooned in an alien nest. Yet many fans still argue that the theatrical version's minimalistic approach is a critical part of its genius. By holding back certain details and limiting screen time for the monster, the film keeps its mysteries intact. Horror thrives on the unseen, and by the time you realize what's happening, you're already in too deep to turn away. That sense of never fully knowing the scope of the threat is a central pillar of Alien's enduring power. Alien succeeds because it taps into our most primal fears: violation, the unknown, the dark corners we can't fully see. It does so with a flair that's both brutal and beautiful. Ridley Scott masterfully blended industrial grime, Geiger's nightmarish designs, O'Bannon's twisted concepts, and an ensemble cast that kept everything painfully human. Add in Goldsmith's unnerving score, the suffocating set design, and the ever-present threat of something unspeakable lurking just out of frame, and you get a cinematic experience that redefined modern horror. Though it might have started as a script called Star Beast, it evolved into Alien, a film that continues to lay eggs in our collective subconscious, each new viewing hatching fresh nightmares and deeper admiration for this classic masterpiece.